Welcome back to another episode of How to Airbnb. And in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 different ways that you can make money on Airbnb. 2 of them where you don't need to own any property at all. Now, before I begin, if you haven't done so already, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can get this information out to as many people as possible. Is Airbnb still legal? Are people actually making money on Airbnb? Can I make money on Airbnb even if I don't have 2 pennies to rub together? And guess what? The answer to all of those is yes. Whether you have tons of cash or you have literally like no money in the bank account, you can still make money on Airbnb. Now, there are 3 main methods that I like to teach, and that is what I'm going to share with you in this video today. But first, before I begin, I'm going to have this nice little bam, handy dandy whiteboard right here to help me teach you guys some of these concepts. Okay, method number 1 is the ownership method. First of all, you either buy a property or you already have a property that you want to use. You stage that property, you put it on Airbnb as a short-term rental, and you make a profit. Now, like I said, I'm going to share with you the pros and the cons of every single method. And so that's what I'm going to do with you right now with the ownership method. There are pros and there are cons. And so let's go over the pros to start. Pro number 1 is you have full control of the property. What does that mean? That means that if you want to renovate, if you want to stage, however you want to stage, if you want to add something in the backyard, if you want to put a fence in, it does not matter. You have absolute full control of the property. Pro number 2 is that you actually make more money doing a short-term rental than a long-term rental. All right. Most people buy property and they put it on the market for it as a long-term rental. But as a short-term rental, you can make significantly more money. Another pro that there is, and this one's pretty apparent, is that you will build equity, right? So not only do you own the house, not only are you cash flowing from the house, but you are also producing another stream of revenue that will realize downstream as equity in the home. And what's kind of cool, and this is kind of another pro to the fact that you're going to build equity, is that if you are doing short-term rentals, other people are going to be paying your mortgage and your property tax and your bills, and it's not you. And one last pro, and this is literally going to be the pro of every other method that I'm going to teach you today, is that once your business is up and running and automated, you can actually make money off of your property anywhere in the world. And that is a beautiful thing. Okay, let's talk about the cons. And now I could only come up with 2 cons. If you guys have more cons, please put them in the comments section below. But the first con that I came up with is the fact that you have to have a large, very large investment to get started. So, I mean, even if you are buying a house and then you're going to renovate, you have to have a large investment. Or if you're going to buy a house that's in really good condition, you again are probably going to have a pretty large initial investment to get started. The other con that I have with this method is the fact that it is hard to scale, right? It's hard to come up with cash unless you are very good at securing investors and getting people on board and getting people that are willing to invest in properties with you and all that good stuff. So it is hard to scale. Now, excluding equity, I want to run some simple math, and do keep in mind your equity portion in the back. But I want to show you the kind of results and success that you could actually get still with the ownership model, even though you have to put a lot of money up front. So first of all, let's take a house. I live in Ontario, Canada. I'm just outside Niagara Falls. We have some of the most expensive real estate in North America. All right. But I still think that these numbers would be proportional depending on where you're at. So let's take a N-unit townhouse where I live, which is going for about $550,000. for a almost new 4-bedroom townhouse, okay? Now, that townhouse will run you in terms of mortgage anywhere based on current interest rates, anywhere between $2,500 and $3,000 a month in the mortgage, and then maybe a couple $100 a month in property tax. So let's just say all in, it's $3,200 plus bills, okay? But let's say on average, you can generate $6,000 a month by putting this place on Airbnb. All right. And you might be like, 6,000, that's about, no, it's not. All my properties this year average about $5,500 to $6,000 a month. Okay. So let's take the $6,000 and subtract $3,200. And guess what? You are left with $2,800. So let's even say it took $1,300 to cover bills and cleaning expenses. That means that you are left with a profit of $1,500. Now, here's why I love that is if you did a long-term rental, guess what? You're probably, I don't even know if you'll get $3,000 a month. First of all, you might, and you would literally just break even and you'll still be in the hole a little bit on some of the other things on the property. But as a short-term rental, guess what, baby? You're gonna make some money. So in my opinion, a short-term rental is way more profitable than doing a long-term rental. Also, do not forget the fact that you will build equity. So all in all, the ownership method is not a bad method. But the next method I'm going to show you is a hack of that method. Method number 2 to making money on Airbnb is what we call the arbitrage method, also known as property hacking. Property hacking? What do you mean? Isn't that like bad? No, not at all. Let me explain to you how this works. First of all, you find places for rent in your area or really anywhere in the world, but you find a place for rent, you talk to the landlord, and you secure that place with the agreement that you are allowed to list this property on Airbnb. Then you go ahead, you stage the property, you list the property on Airbnb, and then you generate a profit from the difference between revenue and your expenses. And now you may be asking, will people actually let you do this? And the answer is yes. My whole business right now is built on this method. I run an Airbnb business, and guess what? I don't own any property, not one. And what's super cool is that there are people literally all over the world that are doing this. And I recently have got my friend involved doing the same business. There are a lot of landlords that will do this, and there are a ton of reasons, and I will share that in another video. Okay, let's talk about the pros. All right, so first of all, in this situation, you have almost full control of the property. Okay, I mean, you're not going to go in and put a fence in the backyard. You're probably not going to do a whole lot of renovations, but you do have control over the staging. You have control over the color of the walls inside of the home. You have control over the look and the feel and the vibe and the art. You have control in terms of how that property is going to present itself on Airbnb. Okay, another pro, which still might be a little bit of a con, but one of the pros is you really don't need a whole lot of money to get started. You don't need tons of cash for a down payment. You don't need tons of cash to do a renovation on the house. But what you do need money for is the ability to stage the property. You gotta have some funds to stage it. And obviously, the more bedrooms that you have, the more money you're going to need in order to get that place ready for Airbnb. A third pro to this is that it is much lower risk. Now, I probably should have put that as a con inside of method number 1, that, you know, if you are running the ownership model, that there is more risk to it. In the arbitrage model is that if the deal doesn't work out, if you're not profitable for whatever reason, although you should do your research first, but if you're not profitable, it's very easy to back out. You can put yourself in for a 6-month or a 1-year term, and then that's it. So your risk can be very well mitigated. You can also put clauses inside of your negotiations with the landlord that says, hey, you know what? If we run this for 3 or 4 months and we don't see a profit, or if something changes, we have the ability to back out of the deal. Now, another pro I love about this is that it's much easier to scale. I don't have to buy 10 properties, then furnish 10 properties. I only have to furnish 10 properties. And what's really cool and neat is that the difference here is that if I'm not buying and furnishing, the money that I would have used to buy, I can actually use that money to furnish another Airbnb, thus producing more cash flow for me and my company. And the final pro that I want to talk about is the fact that when you run this model and it's nice and ready and nice and neat and scaled up and automated, you can make money anywhere in the world running this business. Okay, let's talk about the cons. Con number 1 is you still need a substantial amount of money to get started. I am not going to butter it up for you, okay? There are people and coaches out there that are like, yeah, no problem. Just jump in and get started with arbitrage and here you go. And no, it doesn't work that way. It is going to cost you some money to get started. You are going to need some money to get started. Let me say that again. You're going to need some money to get started, okay? Because you have to furnish the place. And so there is still an investment that you need to make. The next con is that you don't own the property. So now you don't have the full control, and also you will not be taking advantage of equity. And finally, the landlord could decide to sell really at any time, therefore leaving you in the position where you have to find a new place and move. And guess what? That has happened to me. But that is part of business. Okay, let's run some example math. And to be honest with you, it's going to be very similar to the ownership model in terms of numbers. Because at least where I'm at, most landlords are pretty much just break even, or they might lose a little bit, or they might make a little bit. All right. But where I'm at, a 4-bedroom house is going for $3,000. Okay. Up to maybe $3,300, but we'll just say $3,000 flat for a 4-bedroom house. All right. And let's say on Airbnb, you are getting $6,000 a month on average over 12 months for that 4-bedroom house. That means that you are making a gross profit of $3,000. Now, let's just say, worst case scenario, you have to pay out $1,500 in cleaning fees and in bills. That leaves you still with a net profit, we'll call it that, of $1,500. Now, you can start to do the math pretty quickly. If you have 5 of those or 10 of those, let's say 10, you can find yourself making $15,000 a month profit very, very quickly. Method number 3 is really the secret sauce if you have no money. This is the reason why anybody can make money on Airbnb. If you have no money at all, you can still make money. Here it is. Method number 3 to making money on Airbnb is called the co-hosting method. Let me share with you how this works. You find somebody who already is doing Airbnb with their property, or you find somebody who wants to do Airbnb with their property, and you partner with them to manage the day-to-day tasks of running an Airbnb business. Basically, you're saying, hey, look, you know what? You have the house, you have it furnished, you have all of that. You want to make money on Airbnb, but guess what? You probably don't want to handle all the guests. You don't want to handle the maintenance. You don't want to handle all those things. I'll manage it for you, and I'll do it for a fee. Now, in my opinion, this is probably the easiest and fastest way to get up and running and started making money on Airbnb without owning any property at all. And I literally just closed my first co-hosting deal within the last 3 days. I have not got started on it yet, but it was very easy to close. Okay, let's talk about the pros. I mean, there are lots of pros here, obviously. One of the pros being that you don't need any money to get started. You might need like $20 to maybe get some pricing software. But outside of that, it's a very, 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 very low investment to get started in this business. The second pro is that it is very easy to scale. I mean, you could have 10, 15, 20 of these in a very, very short period of time. And before you know it, now you have a full-blown management company. Another pro is that there's very little risk to you. The biggest risk would be the fact that if somebody's not happy with you, they'll fire you. But outside of that, you don't have a massive financial risk. You just have to worry about the management. The last pro I'm going to talk about is this is a business model that you can definitely do anywhere in the world. And I don't know about you, but for me, that was always my dream. I wanted to be able to quit my 9-to-5, which I did, and do a business where I can run it anywhere in the world. I can travel, I can do and be and just go wherever I want. And this business will allow you to do that. Let's talk about some of the cons. The biggest con, in my opinion, is the lack of control. So you are not going to have nearly as much control as you would with the arbitrage method or with the ownership method, because you're definitely not going to be able to jump in and be like, hey, let's renovate this first, let's do this, let's do that. And then B, you're going to have a little bit more of an upward battle when it comes to staging and talking to the owner. They're going to want to be a little bit cheaper, probably. Maybe not everyone, but I'm just saying that, there are those potentials to happen where someone might not want to stage it the same way as you. Another con, which is one that I would look at in this model, is the fact that you do have someone that you report to, someone you have to answer to, someone that you are responsible to, on top of being responsible to the guests. And so because of that, there is somebody you have to answer to, and not everybody likes that. And then the final con to this method, at least in my mind, is the fact that you can be easily replaced. If you don't do a good job, if your rates aren't competitive enough, guess what? Somebody else will come along, they'll cut your lawn, undercut you, and potentially could take you away. So it is very important that if you're doing this model, you build a fantastic relationship with the host so that way they will never want to leave you. Now, if you guys have any pros or cons that you want to add to the co-hosting method, please drop it in the comments below. But okay, let's talk some math. Now, the management model works, there's all kinds of different ways that you can structure these deals with property owners, okay? But one of the most, common ways to do it is to do a percent of the gross revenue, okay? And most people are doing anywhere between 15 and 25%. So with that in mind, let's take our same numbers before of $6,000 a month in gross revenue from Airbnb. But this time, instead of having bills and all of that, we are going to take a percentage of the revenue off the top. Okay? And in this case, we will use 20%. So let's do some simple math. If the property is doing $6,000 a month, okay, and you are receiving 20% of that, your 20% payment is going to be $1,200 a month. So look at the numbers here. $6,000 comes in, $1,200 goes to you directly, and then the homeowner, he's going to take home, or she is going to take home $4,800 a month. Now think about how much more substantial that is than running a long-term rental business. They are making approximately $1,800 more than they would if they were just paying $3,000 a month for the same spot. Okay, so I've shared with you the 3 methods that we use to teach people how to make money on Airbnb. Now, after watching this video and kind of soaking in everything I've taught you, what method do you think you're going to use to get started? Or what method would you want to do when getting started in your business? Put it in the comments section below. I want to hear what your plans are for getting started in the Airbnb space. As I said earlier, you can do the math, right? You can do the math on each of these methods that I have taught you earlier and see that it does not take a whole lot to get to a place where you can replace your income and therefore get yourself in a position where you can quit your 9 to 5 and begin running a side hustle that makes you the kind of money that you've been desiring for a long time. If you have 5 properties, you're doing $7,500 a month on average. If you have 10 properties, you are doing $15,000 a month on average. Now, obviously, I can't promise these numbers, okay? I'm just going based off of my numbers in my area based on the business that I run. But for yourself, if you can model and get similar results, you can see that it will not be very hard to replicate what we are doing, okay, and get similar results for yourself. And then, in addition to all that, if you're making $15,000 a month, guess what? That is almost $200,000 a year, and that puts you in the top 10% of income earners in North America. And you might be like, man, that's crazy. I don't believe it for myself. Look, it is very achievable. It is very believable. I got 5 properties in my first year, and I'm looking at having and managing 12 by the end of my second year. So it is very possible to do this. But anyways, guys, that is it for this video. That is the 3 different methods that we teach to making money on Airbnb. If you haven't done so already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next video.